Welcome to the Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show will have a talk about a Linux project or surround topics about something in the Linux and open source world. It could be a distribution, a desktop environment, an application, or it could just be news, like this week. And we take topics from anywhere around the world for an enjoyable chat. At least that's the goal, to have an enjoyable chat. Anything that is Linux, tech, and open source related is on the table for discussion. I'm Nate, a Linux fitness and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost unhealthy obsession with the OpenSUSE project. And with me today to help me out, to carry the show, I have Eris, Sravan, Colin, Jinda, Mark, and Scrapjaw. So welcome all. I very much appreciate you being here. Hopefully the audio is coming through just fine and I don't have any complaints. All the meters are moving just like they're supposed to. So I'm hoping. So how is everybody?
Good.
Good.
Excellent. So on the docket for today, we're going to go through our news flight. We're going to check on the menu for what's on the menu for 2 weeks because we're taking a week off next week. It'll be a distro exploration. I spoiled it. And we'll have our last call. But first, what have you been doing in Linux or tech, or Linuxing, I guess, as Vash would call it? So Sravan, you have been doing something that is very cool, maybe dry for some, but exciting for a guy like me. So do tell what you've been doing with packaging signing.
Yeah, I'll give a background. As you guys see here, I have a new Pinebook Pro, which arrived last Monday. So yeah, first thing when I get a new ARM tech is get EndeavourOS on it. So I've been trying to create an image which sort of works. I've not been making good progress over the last week. So I have to have packages which provide proper firmware support and proper kernel, proper audio drivers, and also like those things. So I have to build packages. So, but when I'm making images, installing packages, it's a little bit hard, like manually, because you have to copy those package files in a certain location, then manually install them one by one using Pacman. So I thought, why not create a repo where I can host my test packages locally. I can host a repo and then use that repo for downloading my custom packages for image building. So I was looking initially into how to create a repo and then how to sign packages. So first thing in creating a repo and also packaging is when you build a package, after you build a package, you have to sign your package using GPG, because anytime you run your package managers, whether it's Pacman, APT, or DNF, if you look at the terminal output, you'll see that after downloading, all of these packages are verified with their signatures. And the one signing those packages has to be there in the keyring on your computer. So first you download the keyring and then have those keys on your computer. So if some random package is there in a repository, if the signature is not matching, your package manager won't install it. So your keyring, I think someone in the Telegram chat also posted today about like one of the package issues and signature issues in OpenSUSE today. Like some things happen because some keys expire before they're renewed. The renewed key is not on the keyring. So there are like weird issues going on sometimes. So first to have a repo, you need to sign your packages. It's done using GPG. So before signing a package, you have to create your own keyring key. So that is also done using GPG. So first you create a key for signing using GPG. And then if you want others to use your packages too, then you have to send it to key servers like Ubuntu or MIT. There are some, you can find the list online about the key servers, which most distributions use. I think the most popular one is Ubuntu. So then after creating a key, you send it to key servers like Ubuntu to share to others. And also, if you want your key to be used between different computers, You can also export your key and copy that file and then import it on other computers. So initially I created my key on my Raspberry Pi when I was doing most of my development work there, but now I do most of my development work on my Odroid. So I just exported the key, imported it on my Odroid, and it works there too. And then you can use GPG command to sign a package. Like most of the packages are .tar.gz, right? So you take that, you give it to a command and create a signature file. So the new file will have like tar.gz.sig. So that signature file says that, okay, you have signed that particular package. So if you look at your package cache in your computers, you'll see that each package has its own SIG file. Every package you download has a corresponding SIG file. So that's the signature files saying that, okay, this package is authentic. So that's the first step. Like you have to sign all the packages. And second step is pretty much automated in Arch. There's a simple command which comes with Pacman called repo add. So you have to do repo add and then give a package database name. So the database will be a repository name. For example, if you have a repo called OpenNate repo. So you have to
That sounds really cool.
Like OpenNate as a repository name and create like a database file, .db file. And then you have to pass all the packages as an array to the command so that it adds all the packages you want to add to the database. So now once you have a database file, so that's what Pacman downloads first. Whenever you're updating your mirrors, sorry, not update, after when you're doing like initial like sudo apt update, so it downloads, syncs all the mirrors, right? So what it does is actually downloads a database file first. So it compares your database file on the local, and then the new database file you download, and then it compares, okay, what packages are outdated, what packages are not outdated, what to upgrade, what not to upgrade. So it's done when your package manager initially downloads these database files. So that's what you're creating when you're doing the repo add thing. So yeah, that's a database file. So once you have a database file, you have a repo. So what I did was simply create a HTTP server for that folder. And then it has a port. And then when using in my image creation process, like I add my repo to the pacman.conf saying that, okay, this is an additional repo you have to look at. I give it a local, because it's on my local server, I give it a 127001 dash port number. And then my Odroid has that locally available, and when I'm creating an image, it's already there. So I can build new packages, copy them to the folder, sign them, update them, and then additionally I can share. I put this online too. Like I have my website, so I just gave it a subdomain. So anyone else, if they want, they can use it. You can find my key server on Ubuntu. My key on Ubuntu, you can just use my packages if you want. Again, they are testing packages. I wouldn't advise anyone to use them. But if anyone wants to use them, you can just, on an Arch-based system, you can just download my key, sign my key, and then you can use my packages.
So how easy is it for someone to spoof a key then? And
impossible.
Impossible? Okay. Because you sign it with a private key, then there's some sort of a public key.
So the public key is on the Ubuntu key server, but I assign it to my private key, which I can copy only by a file. If I lose my file, that key is lost. That's what I'm saying, right? I created my key originally on Raspberry Pi, then I copied the GPG file, key file, to my Odroid and imported it. Again, each key file has its own passcode. If you lose a passcode, you're done. You can't use that key anymore. And then other people can't even import that key because they don't have that key file. So whenever you send your key ID, what you see, if you remember using GPG, sometimes you receive keys so that your updates go smoothly. So those keys are all public keys, which you can share with anyone. It's public, right? It's same as SSH. Public key, private key. Private key you need for signing. public key you need for authenticating. So in any distro, the package maintainers are all in the keyring. So every distro has its own keyring package. So all of their keys are on the keyring, and the keyring itself is signed. So whenever you update, so that's also, it's like a loop, but somehow it works. So everything is in a circle of, like in ArchWiki, they say it's a circle of trust.
The trust tree. I get it. Yeah, I'm interested in knowing a little more. Like, I know that like when I download my like Zoom, and I haven't imported the keys for it, then I'll get an error thrown up. So someone has to download. You say the keys are stored on Ubuntu, one of Ubuntu servers. Is that how you have it right now?
So first thing, if let's say you're using some random things, like sometimes they ask in the instructions itself, they'll ask you to import keys, right? So first you do GPG receive keys from that key server. You have to know the person's key ID. It's a string of alphanumerical, or you need to know their key ID in terms of the name. So my key ID is SRADJOKER@endeavoros.com. If you search Ubuntu key server, you'll find it. So that key is you can receive the key, and then you have to locally sign that key, saying that, okay, I have got this key from Ubuntu. I want to trust this key on my computer. So you have to locally sign it on your computer, and then you can use files. You can validate files which are signed by that key.
Okay, that's cool. So are you going to be then building more packages for, I'm assuming, EndeavourOS? Then is that the ultimate goal here for you?
No, this was like, I want to create my own private repo, like which I can share with other devs too, so they can also like validate my packages, sort of like sharing. It's for my own personal purpose, so that I can test packages there without uploading to EndeavourOS repos, so that I can test them during an image build process, and also other testing. So it's like my own testing repo. And if I want any of my own packages, I used to install them locally. There weren't any centralized place, but now I have a centralized place to have my own packages which are not available in the AUR. I build them myself, like using some modified package builds or something. So I have that packages in the repo now, so I can install them pretty easily instead of using like you know how you install a random deb package, right? You can do that with Pacman too. You can install a random tar GZ file. But I don't. This I think is a better way. Better way to manage my own packages which I create, and also for testing.
That makes sense. Is this a very similar process then for any other distributions? Like this, you're using this obviously for EndeavourOS. You're building Arch packages, but is the process similar for building debs or RPMs?
I would think so, because it's the same GPG. Everyone is using GPG, and then most probably some sort of database file for saying, okay, these are the packages available in that repo. So I would assume the package is similar, but I haven't had much experience in like RHEL-based or Debian-based systems, so I'm not sure. Maybe someone else here has more experience.
I certainly do not.
But package signing works the same way everywhere.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure everyone uses GPG.
Well, very cool. Well, that's neat. So Michael says that he signs his packages with crayons, and I think that is a good way to sign it. All right. Well, thank you for that.
Crayons.
Are you going to be publishing any of this on your blog?
Yes, I was planning to restart writing my blog, but this maybe not. It's not a popular use case, but maybe.
Okay. You never know.
Never know.
I'm surprised what's popular on my website versus not. So I don't understand.
No, you have really cool stuff, but again, like your audience, like because we are nerds, our audience base is like pretty small.
Right, that's true.
Can I have a link to Sravan's blog or website or whatever he's got, because I want to have a look.
Oh, I shared it. I'll share it.
I'll add it. That's not the one you showed me before, is it? You showed. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, no worries. Yes, Nate.
if you want to see my repo, I'll post that too. I named it SAR. It's comedy, like Star Joker's Arch Repository or something. I I want to make it something funny. I think it's funny, but I don't know if anyone else thinks it's funny.
The key is to do things that are funny to you, and who cares if other
Yes.
people think it's funny or not. It's all about. I do things like that all the time. Things I think are funny, and everybody else looks at me like I got a lobster growing out of my forehead, and I'm okay with that, because then I laugh again because they think I'm crazy, and it's okay. Colin, you've been playing with some distributions again.
Yeah, I was trying to tap into my artistic side, and I'm doing a segment called Distro Reflection. So every now and then I'm going to look back on some distros that I've looked at, and go back to the first time that I looked at it, and then how it's progressed up until now. So the first one I'm looking at is Peppermint. So I think they've progressed quite nicely, and they're still moving forward at this point. But they've also got a Devuarm build, which is quite interesting as well, which is systemd free. So that's interesting. I might look at that one as well. But at the moment, yeah, I'm looking at Peppermint OS. So I've just got to edit that video and upload it.
Very cool. Now, when you say you're reflecting back on distributions, so you're seeing like how they've progressed since the last time you've looked at them, or are you going to be sitting in front of a pond with your face reflecting off of it?
Well, that's a good idea, but no. No, it's just reflecting. So what happened with Peppermint was Peppermint was taken over because of the sad passing of Mark Reeves. Obviously, It was taken over by another developer. It was based on Debian, which I think was the direction that Mark was going to take it anyway, I believe. And it's been probably a bit of a tough road for those guys. And I just wanted to check out from their first distro up until now how it's gone, because I did have a distro that I downloaded, but it was a few months that I downloaded it, so I had to. So this is all within the video. I had to download the latest because it had some changes in it as well. So that was interesting. I never thought of downloading it again, but I thought because it's based on Debian, it probably wouldn't have had. But they've got their own tools and stuff within there as well. So obviously things are going to get updated. So it's interesting just to see the development process of Peppermint and how it's gone. The main thing with Peppermint is their installer. They've put the packages that you can select within the Calamares installer. That was the biggest change that they did. Yeah. So yeah, that's been interesting, and it's good. It's good to do these videos. You also learn about the distro itself as well. So it's interesting adventure.
That's excellent. And then you said you're doing a video. You're working on publishing a video based on how things have changed in Peppermint.
Yeah, I've got just a progression basically.
Okay.
It's not an overcomplicated video or anything, but I've done the video. I just got to start editing, which I haven't done yet. I haven't started yet. It's too cold.
You say so. I think maybe your weather patterns are backwards from mine.
Oh, it's terrible over here at the moment. Raining too much.
Yeah, it's a little bit cool today and rainy here as well, which is fine.
Is that right?
Yeah. Unseasonably cool, but that's okay. Well, I see Bill has come into he was here. Well, maybe he'll come back. Well, I have decided that I've let a project go too long, and it was time I just called an expert and sent them the boards to fix for me. This is not a thing that I do very often. I think that I can do everything. But after 2 years of working on it, I decided it was time to shoot the Nate and send it off in the post. So I did. And basically to a stranger I met on the internet through Facebook, part of a vintage computer group. I had no idea who this guy was, and I sent him three of my Commodore 64 motherboards to repair. Obviously, there's a risk. Anytime you send things out to strangers on the internet, obviously. I've talked to him over the years, getting other bits of help that I've had. He fixed them all in like an afternoon, and I struggled on them for days on end. And so, sure, it cost me like almost basically $200 to fix 3 boards and have them shipped back. So I think that it was worth it. And it made me think, when is it when is it not the highest and best of use of your time to do a thing, and when is it the highest and best use of your time to do a thing? Do you ever think about that? Like go through that inner struggle? Is that something? So anyway, desoldering old chips is just, I don't know how, I've watched them do it on the YouTubes so many times. I figured I can do this. This can't be that hard. and there's, I was a complete and utter failure. And so I just decided, you know what? I'm tired of looking at these things. I need to clear my bench off. And as such, I will have more functional, I'll have a total of 5 functional Commodore 64s essentially when these come back. Do I need them? Do I need them all? No, I don't. And I gave away some. I don't know where they came from. I only ever had one as a kid, and all these others appeared. I gave some of them away, but I thought it was just time. I gotta clear my task queue. So that's where I'm at. I just want to share that maybe it's time to call an expert. Was it that show, the game show where you could phone a friend? Yeah,
Phone a friend.
Yeah.
Wants to be a millionaire?
Yes, that one.
Yeah, wants to be a millionaire. Yeah.
So I phoned an expert because I with everything else that I'm doing right now, I just couldn't do it, and I don't want to sit. So, welcome, Michael.
Hello.
Nice to have your text here and your voice.
That's right. Well, my video's not working because I'm supposed to be editing an episode of.
Oh, okay.
So I got headphones on and everything, but I joined because of your question is so interesting about like how do you decide when it's worth doing it yourself or not doing it yourself, and I think that's like an incredibly hard question because of the fact that you don't want to admit, or at least I don't want to admit when I can't do something.
Exactly.
But then when I realize the amount of time saving of having someone else do it for me versus me doing it is worth it. Like almost always. It depends on how much, I guess. But the vast majority of the time, I think it is worth it. So it's like there's always some fork in the road or barrier or something.
It's very true. I mean, getting away from just tech itself, but I mean, I've got a roof where when it rains a lot, it leaks under the where the what do you call it? Pergola or pergola? What do you call it? A pergola? We call it a pergola or a patio, and it leaks between the house.
I've never heard of either one.
Haven't you?
You mean
a patio? You know.
I've heard of patio, but I've never heard of the other words.
Oh, I think you mean awning. Like an
awning is another word. Yeah, an awning is another word. So where it's connected to the house. Gazebo's self-standing.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just picking random words that are related to houses or something.
I mean, carport.
But no, it's not a carport because we stand under it. There's no cars under there, sorry. But yes, it can be similar to that. But it's connected to the house and it leaks. And I've done so much work to stop this from leaking. I've got another plan. And the missus said, if it doesn't work this time, we're calling an expert. So it's a similar thing. Yeah. How much do you do before you do call an expert? It's a good question.
I think it's more like how much time does it take and how much time do you spend on doing something? Because I feel like if it's going to take me more than an hour and it's worth doing, and I can spend other times, for example, like editing my show, which by the way, I'm going to leave in a second so I can go do that. But if I can spend like, if it's more like the cost versus the time, like the whole idea of time is money, my friend, that kind of thing. Like if it costs any significant amount of time, I think that's more valuable than there is in the money factor. Because if I can spend a reasonable amount, it makes more sense to save the time than it is the money. Because there's always the time. Like I used to be the opposite. I used to be like a very minimalist, frugal, I like to call myself a financial minimalism at the time. Other people would say cheap, but whatever. And that has backfired on many occasions. So the financial minimalism is not a very practical solution. But when I started, looking at more of it in the sense of like how much time I have to spend in order to do something, I don't always balance it properly. But I think that's the most important part about it, rather not how much money it costs, but how much time it takes to do whatever it is.
Yeah. And I'm sorry to say this, Nate. I'm very sorry to say this, but you're muted.
Good.
He really loves it.
No, it's fun. It's kind of like a running joke. I always mute myself. So
yeah, I mean, it's a requirement on a live stream. Whoever's hosting has to mute themselves.
Although I think
accidentally.
I think last week I didn't do it because I had no bloopers last week. So now I finally have one. That's good.
Yeah, you got through last week.
But I didn't have anything like to throw at the end. So there just wasn't a blooper section.
My favorite thing about the running jokes is
What's that?
is I can never catch them.
Thanks, Michael. Scrapjaw.
And yes, there's another word. There's another word there. It's veranda. Somebody put in chat. Veranda is another word for a patio or pergola. Or I used to watch an American show. Where they did fix things. I can't remember. They were house flippers.
There are way too many of those shows.
There's tons of them. House flippers.
And they called it a pergola. And I said, never heard it called that before, but either of you. So that's interesting.
I call it the porch around here.
So a pergola.
I was thinking, like, you're either saying arugula and purgatory, and they combine together to make pergola.
Any salad made with arugula is purgatory.
So the definition of pergola, whatever, that I know, it doesn't actually have a roof on it. It's an open top. They sometimes have vines growing on it.
Oh, was that? Oh,
yeah, that's how I know it. But veranda is a
that's
fancy
how I know
word
it too.
Yeah.
Based on you just telling me. Miranda.
Veranda.
Wait, veranda.
Yeah, veranda.
Miranda's a person's name.
Yes.
Veranda.
Yeah, we know our rights around here.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Boom.
I feel like I'm slacking with the dad jokes now that Scrapjaw is trying to challenge me.
Yeah, you got a couple of KOs on you there, Michael.
Yeah, that one was a good one.
Yeah, so when it comes to things like roofing, that's actually something that I will do myself because I have all those tools and I've done it many times. But I also did training with somebody else with it. So some things that I don't have the training in, I find that maybe it's better to just not do those things and maybe let an expert do it. I don't know.
Well, it just depends. I mean, something can look so simple, yet it becomes not so simple. I mean, I have a lot of water falling in that area. I've actually cut the gutter out to allow the water to free flow, but and that's created other problems. It's not as bad as what it used to be, but we had a bad northerly storm here about 8 years ago, and we had water. We had like a Niagara Falls coming through the vents of the roof inside the house. And that's because the way it's designed, it didn't allow the water to get off the roof quick enough. So that's why I've been on this. And this has been an 8-year ongoing thing.
Constant struggle.
Not that it bothers me. Yeah, constant struggle, yeah, for sure.
Well, how often does it rain in Australia? Is it like you get rain all the time?
Depends
like
where you are.
Well, where you are.
In the west, it doesn't really rain as much as the east of Australia, but definitely we can get some weird storms every now and then, I have to say. And we've been getting a lot of rain lately, so it's good anyway. We need the water.
So I was in this here I live in Michigan, and we get rain so frequently. It's like the earth pretty much decides just to soak it up immediately, at least where I am, because it's very sandy soil, so there's not really standing water.
Pure Michigan.
Yeah. You live in Michigan too, Eris?
No,
Pure-
because that's the same. Because you said a lot of rain, so pure Michigan.
Oh yeah, pure
so the
Michigan.
lakes.
Yes. The I like the memes. People like pure Michigan is a slogan they use in Michigan to kind of promote the state. And so there's memes out there of every time that you see Michigan at its worst in the wintertime, pure Michigan, you know. So, but anyway, so it's like the Earth is just in this area is just conditioned to take on water, essentially. And I was in a country called Djibouti. It's in Africa, and it didn't rain there very often. And when it did rain, it wasn't very much, but it was like a torrential downpour because the earth wouldn't soak up the water. It was so, dry and parched all the time. And so things would just wash away, or you have these flash floods. And I thought it was just so bizarre because you get like a little sprinkle and all of that went into these canals and then just made a mess of things. And I made me think, well, if they had rain more often, I suppose either everything would be destroyed or maybe the ground would be softer and more able to accept the rain. I don't know. But anyway, I thought that was pretty bizarre.
Yeah, we're the same as you then. In Perth, we have a lot, it's very sandy. So yes, the water does go through the ground very quickly. So we can get flooded, but it'll disappear quite quick. So unlike the East Coast, they're very, what can you say? They have a lot of clay and stuff. So it's a lot more solid ground. It's a bit different.
So does Vince live on the east
He
side?
lives East Coast.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of Vince.
There he is.
The saloon has both sides covered.
I think we have more Australian representation than we do anywhere else.
Yeah,
All
we're
right.
learning about pergolas.
What that has to do with a Linux Saloon, no idea. But here we are. It's open source information.
Open roof information?
That too. So, Eris, you did a poll, and I thought it was a great poll, and perhaps lead us down a bunch of additional discussion that has nothing to do with news. So please.
So the title of the poll is, how do you prefer your panels placed? And Telegram said 32% said bottom panel, 45% top panel, 13% said left panel, 3% said top and bottom panel, and then 7% said only dock, no panel. I got 2 replies. One of them was, well, I can't vote for twice, but I'm B and G, top panel and top and bottom panel, and XFCE and mate or mate. Just some clarification before I answer. This is another reply. Since based on the last option, we are considering a dock and a panel as 2 separate things, as I would consider them. If I prefer the traditional Mac style dock, bottom plus panel on top, the correct answer for me would be top panel, correct? And yes, in this poll, since I only have 10 options, the panel and the dock are 2 separate things. So just to clarify that. And for Matrix, it was split down the middle, 50-50, bottom panel and top panel. And there were no replies.
I think what I learned from this is on Matrix, half of people were wrong, and in Telegram, all but 32% of people were wrong. So that was very interesting. I'm kidding. I'm not trying to be toxic. That was a joke. So
Facetious.
that was the one guy. That's interesting. So I never thought of docks as being different than panels. What is the delineation between a dock and a panel?
A dock is an application, isn't it?
The
A
dock
panel is
usually just houses applications that are open or they're pinned, and panels can have separate widgets and other things. If you use Latte Dock, you could get rid of your panels and just use Latte Dock as your panels. So in that way, you can have the dock itself be the panel.
a dock is not default part of the desktop, right? That's the difference, isn't it?
As far as I know, I don't think there is a desktop that has a default dock.
I think Mac OS has a default dock, doesn't it?
Well, I was talking as far as Linux.
Oh,
Yeah.
I guess maybe if you consider Ubuntu Mate, they do. I don't know if they still do, but they would ship Plank in one of their layouts.
Is Plank considered a dock or is it considered a panel?
It's a dock. It's a dock. Yeah.
Plank is a dock.
Okay.
I would say the difference between a dock and a panel is that dock mostly has icons, while a panel has like stuff like system tray, icons, like whole bunch of stuff. And it's not, most of the times it's not animated. And in the dock, you can see animations a lot of times.
Also,
and icons are also bigger in docks.
ever since like Windows 7, there has been a move to make panels have like dock-like abilities, like the way the Windows 7 panel is. You can pin and open applications that are grouped, and that way it's sort of like a dock, but it's a panel really.
Okay. It does seem like the delineation maybe is not super clear then. I mean, you said a dock is larger, more single-purposed, while a panel is multi-purposed.
A dock is more focused to open apps or
Okay.
apps that you want to open frequently, and that's
Alright.
pretty much what delineates a dock from a panel, because
Okay.
panel is more versatile. You can put more things in it.
Right. All right. Well, that's interesting. I know I know Mac OS. Last time I used it, it's been a while, but they have a panel at the top and a dock at the bottom. Right? Is that how it is?
Yes, I think so. I think that's a default look for Mac OS.
And they
No,
have
that's elementary, isn't it?
Oh, that's right. Elementary does have a dock. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about
Yes.
Elementary. It does.
And then like the things like time and system functions, like the not quite a system tray, more of an elite system tray, where just a few things are there, sound and power, stuff like that. That's up in the top and not in the bottom. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I learned a thing. I never actually I just used the term dock and panel interchangeably until now, and now I won't do that again. Why do you suppose so many people like the panel not on the bottom?
I like it at the top because if you use a web browser, the tabs are at the top. So by looking at the monitor, your point of view is going to fixate on the top portion. Now, if you have the panel all the way at the bottom, you're going to have to go look down and look up, and it just seems more efficient to me to keep everything in the center to top portion of the panel. And that's why I also like placing my panel like GNOME with the clock right in the middle, top panel.
Okay. See, I like everything on the bottom because I only want to look at I don't want to constantly see my things. I want to go to them when I need them, if that makes any sense. Like my eyes look down when I need something new or something different.
You don't want it in your way. You want it only when you need to see it, basically. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. It doesn't go away. It stays at the bottom. So I only look down at the clock when I need to look at the clock. Although it'd probably be a good idea for me to have a clock at the top also because I'm really bad at looking at the clock.
Just further
So
to
for
what
you, it's
Aris was saying. Sorry, Colin.
no. Go on.
Okay.
No, you go.
Well, further to what Aris was saying, I used to use Opera, the browser, because you could move the tabs to the bottom, and so I would have the panel at the bottom and also the tabs at the bottom as well. But then I thought that because your menu is also at the top, when you move everything to the top, everything's at the top, so then you don't have to move your mouse as far.
Yeah,
There
that
is
makes sense.
efficiency with the mouse movement if you place everything at the top.
But
It sounds like for Nate, it's a visual thing for you, right? So you don't want everything being too crowded in one spot. You like to focus on
Right.
what you're looking at rather than
Yeah.
Because I have my panel at the bottom as well. Don't know why. It's probably just a work process I'm used to. Maybe I don't know.
I blame Windows 98 or 95.
Just blame Windows.
Yeah, I blame Windows. It works for me. Well, all right. Well, it's time to muddle our way through the news. As always, a big thanks to Michael from This Week in Linux for mixing up a great flight of topics. The first topic I want to get into is one I've wanted to talk about for a little while, and it's called Gamify Your Life with Habitica. I don't know if any of you have lots of tasks in your life and they're kind of irritating or less fun to do, but do any of you have a way? Well, let me read the article first. Let's talk about a cool open source app. It's called Habitica. It's a free habit building and productivity app that helps you treat parts of your life like a game. Habitica can help you with whatever kind of goals you'd like to do. Maybe you want to improve your work life, improve healthy habits, or anything else you want. A to-do list app plus an RPG to help get things done. So Michael says he's been using it for a couple of months. He thinks it's helped him stay engaged with getting things done. So he wanted to bring it to the attention of the rest of the internet. He made a video on it as well. If you'd like to learn more on pro tips, then you can check that out. I have a link to that. I don't know. Maybe Eris can do the link thing because he's good at that sort of thing. But anyway, do any of you see like a benefit to turning certain tasks into a game? Do you feel like that's a useful thing to do, or do you think that's kind of silly?
Well, the first thing that pops up in my mind is how do you achieve your goals if you're playing a game to motivate yourself to achieve your goals?
Well, I think that you win it by actually, or like you progress in the game by doing the thing in real life. So you can cheat and not do the thing and just say you did the thing, or you can actually do the thing and then reward yourself with that video game dopamine hit.
Yeah, you're supposed to set goals and tangible ways to get those goals, and then once you fulfill the goals, then you reward yourself in some way. So that way you kind of train yourself to keep doing more goals because you'll get more rewards. It's a way of hacking your own mind in some ways, I guess.
Well, like playing video games, you get a dopamine hit when you accomplish something, right? And then to do things in real life and accomplish something takes a lot more effort before you get that dopamine hit. And so sometimes it's harder to motivate yourself, if you're used to doing a lot of video gaming and so forth. So I think the idea is to kind of combine some of that and get that sense of accomplishment in real life through a gamification. Or is that kind of crazy and we're talking like turning ourselves into cyborgs on that? I mean, it seems like we're not far off.
In some ways, you could relate this to Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go, like you walk around and you play a game. It's a way that you can force yourself to do some exercise. Because of course, if you don't walk around, you're not going to catch the Pokemon. You're not going to get the items. So it turns one thing you want to do into a game with a way to incentivize yourself to actually do it.
Right. I don't know. Any thoughts on that, or is this one of those things that interests me and not a whole lot of others? There was some time ago that I read where if you create a task list by doing a check mark on that task, that you actually get a dopamine hit from that. An actual one.
That's precisely what I do.
Okay.
I have lots and lots of different lists.
Yeah, I have several lists as well. Most of them are digitized. And I use Contact. That's a Plasma app, a KDE app, I should say. And do you think that the task list, like, let's say, Vince, you put a bunch of things on today, and you can't get to all of them, or is it do you not work like a day list? How do you manage that?
So I have an overall task list, which are things that I must do, and it has due dates. So I use Microsoft To Do. Sorry, guys, but yeah, it's good. It's good because it allows me to sync it with my wife's tasks, and we can then share tasks and also assign tasks to each other, which is great. So she ends up giving me stuff to do. Yeah, yes, it's good, and it can be dangerous. Yeah. It's more though to keep my head organized, because otherwise there's just so much going on, and life just is busy that I otherwise will not know what to do. But because there is a due date function, I can set the due date and have it remind me. But oftentimes, if I know that I've still got a bit of time left, I'll extend it and keep extending it and just keep sticking it in the long grass until it's absolutely due. And this is typical of me with bills. Okay.
I do a task list as well. I don't gamify it, but I use my calendar, and I put my tasks in when they're due, whatever. But I find that as I add to the task list, or I find that I add to the task list quicker than I can actually eliminate things off of that task list. And so I schedule things out when I'm going to do a thing, and sometimes I get to it, sometimes I don't. and sometimes I get a bunch of things done, and sometimes I, very little, just even though it's on my list. But it's not things like brushing my teeth or exercising. It's, things like organizing a part of the, a room in the house or whatever.
I do that. I use GNOME to do for my YouTube videos and anything else tech related, pretty much. And then I just tick off the list when I'm done. So, and it's a good idea because sometimes, like I had an idea for tonight. I think when I was at work during the week, and then I didn't write it down, and that was it. The idea was out the window. But it's you need to put a list is good, so you know what tasks you have to do, so you don't forget what you have to do, and then you can just wipe them off the list once they're done. So, but I mean, there are some daily things that you do you don't really need a list for, to be honest.
So do you think gamifying is a good strategy?
I think it's I think it'd be distracting, to be honest.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
I think it depends on the person. If you are someone that requires a lot of motivation to get something done, then maybe the motivation of having maybe some sort of a reward at the end can be useful. But I'm not quite sure that can apply to all tasks, because there are things that you just got to do that are unpleasant. And if you train your brain to be doing these things only because of the reward, then maybe that's not, the best reason for doing these, for getting the stuff done, if you get what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if I've got something to do, I go and do it, I get it done, especially if it's a nice warm day. And once it's done, head to the beer fridge, grab a beer, there's your reward.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
My way of dealing with tasks is I always tackle the hardest things first, and I work my way to the easiest things. That's the way I work. I don't know about other people, but I always like to get the hard things out of the way and then work my way to the easiest things.
Right. That makes sense. Well, I just thought that was a very interesting thing. I thought it as maybe as a way to motivate my kids to do different tasks rather than having to use angry dad motivation tasks, I guess. When they don't listen, but might be a way to encourage them more. I don't know. Something I'm thinking about. I thought it'd be a neat idea anyway.
We're all wired differently. We all have our own ways of doing things, I suppose.
Well, I needed yard work done today, and they wanted ice cream.
Did it work?
Yes, it did. As well as it can work for a 4-year-old, but the 8-year-old definitely, he got to it.
Well, that's very cool. Well, to move on to some other news that might be a little bit more interesting to the Ubuntu folks out there. There's a point release of 22.04 of Ubuntu, the LTS. That was a really terrible way of introducing that. So Ubuntu 22.04.1 LTS was released. So after a week delay, as reported on the last week, the point release has a ton of underlying changes with a few notable changes to highlight. So various Dell XPS Alder Lake fixes, Intel AMX support backported to their various kernel flavors, RISC-V, Star-V, Vision-V support with installation-ready images. The latest Ubuntu includes mitigation against the RetBleed vulnerability. I don't know that one. And a variety of bug security fixes is noted on the earlier article. And for those curious, this release is not including any new hardware enablement improvements, such as newer kernel updated Mesa drivers. The updates occur once every 6 months with backports from interim releases. These hardware enablement updates will be available towards the end of the year after Ubuntu 22.10 is released. Also, all the official flavors have released their 22.04.1 versions as well, which mostly includes the same updates as Ubuntu proper, but one of the flavors should be highlighted due to recent changes they made. So Ubuntu 22.04.1 updates your Calamares installer to include a swap file by default, which is great as a swap file, is arguably a better way. Ubuntu also has the newer backport PPA that we talked about previously. So we're going to get the latest version of LXQt in Ubuntu, you can now do just that. So, is that pretty exciting? Does anybody have the need for those like backports or anything like that? I know that some people have new hardware and probably need that. I don't know if anybody here is in that camp. Maybe Mark. Mark might have newer hardware.
I do have a newer laptop, but I had installed the drivers I needed already. So
When you say install the drivers, like there's a place to install specific drivers for that laptop to work with Ubuntu.
yeah, the Intel, I believe it was an Intel Wi-Fi modem and such.
Okay.
And I had there were drivers that existed. I just needed to make sure I had them. So.
And it's working, no problems, no weirdness.
Yeah, no problems.
That's all that matters.
I am running 2204. I install patches. I update my box, every few days, if not daily. And so I believe, the 2204.1 release is if you're gonna go for a new install, that's the package to grab because it has everything in there. But if you've just been rolling along and patching as you go, you should be at the same level.
And what distribution do you primarily run now?
Well, I run a couple. The box behind me is running Mint, Linux Mint, and then my laptop's running 2204.
Okay.
And then I have many different virtual machines in my home that I'm my go-to though is 2204 Jammy Jellyfish.
Okay. There was a topic that Prophetic shared in the Telegram. I don't know if anyone has read this. It's kind of it's a little bit saucy. The title of the article is called GNOME 42, The Nonsense Continues. It was published on Medium. It sounds like a frustrated user. I don't know from my perspective. And he starts off the article saying, it seems the tech industry has been trying to make us believe that we need constant novelty, otherwise we'll be left behind. Although we can question this logic, we can all agree it has dominated the market. The majority of popular applications and services are constantly being updated, even if these changes are irrelevant or, in many cases, making the products worse. GNOME 42 is just another example of that. Instead of fixing the long list of issues found in previous GNOME versions, the companies behind GNOME decided to add more, creating inconsistencies, including dubious libraries, useless new applications, removing features, and even ignoring well-established UI conventions. And it goes into libedweta, which I think looks nice. And then it gives some examples of before and after, and so forth. And I disagree with some of his statements about how libedweta is designed to also support mobile devices, which means your PC carries code for the other platform and vice versa. He thinks the coexistence is nonsense, but I think having a singular code base is probably better for reducing technical liability. So I don't know if anyone has read that article or not, but what do you think of that when bugs are ignored, but new features or the new bugs are added into software? I'm not going to pick on GNOME necessarily. It just happens to be the impetus of the discussion itself. Do you ever find any personal pain in that? See, Jindy, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I've seen that in a certain program that I use at work a lot. They add a lot of new stuff to it. Old stuff doesn't work. The new stuff doesn't probably work either. I see it. I think I see it more now than I ever did before. But I have two particular software packages that I use at work, and there's a lot of errors in them. How to say? Trying to be as politely as I can to say yuck.
So you're saying burning or a flaming dumpster fire? Is that what you're trying to?
Well, one's particularly bad, and the other one is a big giant program and a very big program, and it should, there's a lot of things that should work on it, and they do things that are like add-ons and half done, and they made a dark mode, a dark theme that was useless. It was pointless. Like, you know, when you gotta, I don't have that many people that I work with. So you like, we only have 3 guys, and I go, hey, does anybody ever use, and you start rattling off stuff. And the reason why you don't use it is because it didn't work. And the reason I don't use it is because it didn't work when it came out. It may work now, but I never went back to it. You know what I mean? Because I'm so stubborn, you know, and okay, this didn't work 20 years ago. Well, why would I ever go back to it? You know what I mean? Some little piece in a software package. I've discovered that happens a lot.
So
Or
Michael,
maybe that's just me.
there's a piece of software I used some years back that I wonder if it's the same piece of software. But Michael says in the chat, ignoring bugs is disappointing, but there's a bit of a balance between a need for new stuff for hype and fixing stuff for stability. And he says dark mode is not useless, but I think you meant that the dark mode in that application was useless. I think is what you're.
Yeah.
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 I think right now the main issue in GNOME, again, I don't use it that often. It's like you have to theme GTK 3 apps a different way than you have to theme GTK 4 apps. And not all apps are GTK 4 because they're slowly porting them one by one. And it's like when I first like used GNOME, it's like Disk Manager, that Baobab app. They just ported it to GTK 4. It was like everything else on my screen was dark, and that was like bright white. It's like, how do I fix it? And again, I went to ArchWiki, found a command line thing, which was different than how you theme GTK 3. Right now, it's like half apps are GTK 3, half apps are GTK 4. They didn't port all of them, so you have to theme them differently. And as you know, in GTK 4, you can't, there's only light and dark mode and accent colors, and not really any sort of theming.
Well, another issue in GNOME 42 is the terminal is left behind, is the title of the section. After more than 20 years of working on terminal, GNOME decided to introduce a new default terminal application that no one asked for called console, with a C instead of K. Weird. But there's nothing so bad as it could not be worse, right? GNOME 42 final release, I'm smashing words together. The final release ships with console in beta version, and it still uses GTK 3 and no libadwaita, meaning more visual inconsistencies in GNOME 42. Now, I don't understand the logic of that. Is it just to shoehorn it in and then fix it later, you think?
I think I've seen Schickel saying something about, he said he's got no problem with it. I haven't seen console. I'm on GNOME 42.3 and I haven't seen console. Or is it something you have to install? Or is it meant to be part of the GNOME desktop itself?
Sure.
I'm confused. I'm confused on that one.
Maybe,
but I think they're running under the no pain, no gain philosophy. Is that what they're doing? It's got to be something like that.
I believe that GNOME terminal dev did not want to port over to GTK4.
Okay.
So console is GTK4, and that's what they're going with that. As far as I think GNOME text editor, I think the problem with that one is it could never open big files, and the new one can open big files, and the new one is being made with GNOME Project Manager or something is the other app. It's like it's going to be like a less options than that program. So it's like a light version. That's what the goal of the new text editor is. But it's still gonna have the same code base, so it doesn't like have those issues that it had before.
So Dan says console is actually GTK4. So maybe the article's wrong. Maybe the beta was in GTK3. I don't know.
And I think it's lost all the options. Go on.
I was going to say, I do take issue with them naming it console, because at some point there's going to be a question. Is that console with a K or console with a C?
With a C.
Someone's going to ask that.
Right.
It's with a C.
So if it's
I'm pretty
sure.
There's
going to be confusion. There's going to be confusion, though.
Isn't it?
They should have named the console with a G.
Console.
Console.
Gonzo.
I mean, I like it.
I think another reason for people not liking this introduction is the fact that you know, when you open GNOME Terminal, you've got certain themes that you can introduce that make it easier for you to read. I think you've lost that ability to be able to do that, I think. And that's probably something that people aren't happy with as well. So I think GNOME's just simplifying everything where you can't even do those little, you know, I like, what do I use? I use Cobalt, which has got like a greenish background or something. I can't remember exactly what color it was, but it just seems to have a good contrast with the text in the background. But maybe they're taking away that ability to do that. I'm not sure. I think that might be the case.
There is a feature of it that I think is pretty cool, is that the header bar will change red when you go into sudo mode. I think that's a neat thing.
That is cool.
Yeah.
That happens in Nemo for quite a long time, I believe. And some other distros or desktop environments, I believe.
I'm just saying, I think it's cool.
Mm.
I know the text goes red
Fair
in
enough. Yeah.
terminal, I mean, in console with a K. So there's that.
There's a lot of names coming up in chat for console.
Yeah. I mean, I like it all. I think Evelyn said germinal, which is like germ in all. I think that's pretty funny. Gnosol, that was used, Sravan. Gnome soul.
Now I am a little confused because this article was talking about it, but then in my Ubuntu that has GNOME 42, Terminal is the default app. So,
well, GNOME does their own. I mean, Ubuntu does their own thing. So they change it to suit their needs. Were you gonna say something, Eris?
Ubuntu did not ship the latest apps, and they didn't transfer everything to GTK4. They held back the packages that they could to GTK3. And I also wanted to point out that this article was written April 9th, so there has been quite some time since then.
Michael did say that it's in beta, so it's probably not there by default. That's probably why my GNOME 42.3 doesn't have it as well. So it's still in beta mode. Beta, whichever way. Words are hard.
I like them both.
One more thing Michael brought is like GTK is a mess. Like they're changing APIs constantly. It's like if I'm a hobbyist programmer, like trying to make some simple things, it's like, why would I ever use GTK to make a cross-platform app if I want to?
Fun tools. It's like every day is like a game of playing Russian roulette. You never know when it's going to go off.
So playing devil's advocate, there's always a question about using Qt because of what the Qt company has said in the past. They've thought about limiting more the access to the latest branch, like they have for, I think, recently. So some people want to use GTK because GTK doesn't have those issues. But on the other side, you would say that the Qt is a better platform for cross-platform because it has more features than GTK.
Yeah, I know that the cross-platform nature of Qt makes it advantageous for a lot of reasons. Welcome back, Michael.
I think Evelyn's comments, if you have a look at Evelyn's comments, she's saying that she's happy that they're building a new terminal because of the legacy code within the older GNOME terminal, which has been around since GNOME early days.
I have to stop listening to the show because y'all keep pulling me back in. So as I continue to edit, somehow I'm going to try to do this too. The couple of the comments y'all were talking about was really interesting, in the idea of why GTK is popular. A lot of people use it. So the whole thing about licensing with Qt has two factors that are very critical. Yes, the Qt company is terrible and they do incredibly stupid things all the time. But the last time they did something stupid was only like, what, a year and a half ago? Sure. The time before that was 15 years. So people kept saying that they were doing something stupid, even though they had no evidence of such. Then they decided, yeah, we're going to do something stupid. But these people were just waiting for them to do something stupid to complain about it. But what's more important is the most critical piece of this is the agreement between Trolltech and the KDE Free Qt Foundation. So this is important because the only reason KDE chose to do Qt is because Trolltech agreed for this situation. They said, if you ever decide to completely proprietary or make Qt proprietary, you have to give us the ability to convert Qt to an open source fork that we control. Like, you have to give us permission to do this. And this was done in 1999. So this problem that people have had with Qt for the licensing or whatever nonsense, or the saying that it's proprietary, has not been true since 1999. So yes, Qt company makes some really dumb decisions, but at the same time, there's no way that they will go so far as to destroy everything, because if they do, they essentially make themselves worthless, because KDE will immediately fork it. And right now, KDE couldn't handle forking Qt. But Qt as a company deciding to destroy open source would make so many other companies back KDE in a massive way that I kind of want Qt to be stupid. Because in a way, they're going to invigorate development from the KDE side, and having all this backing, and it become this, basically they would essentially shoot themselves in the foot and make their own product worthless. So there's no reason to worry about it'll forever go proprietary. Like, that's not going to happen. Yes, they'll keep doing more ways to try to skirt the line, but they're not going to completely cross it, because they would be essentially killing their own company at that point. Now, the thing about GTK that I don't like is that it is not cross-platform. Like, it is outright not cross-platform, because GTK on Windows gets updates once every, 5 years, maybe. Like, they recently got an update, but 5 to 7 years before that, it was like they were on 9 versions back, and it's constantly just you're never having the same consistent toolkit. So it's not cross-platform because the versions are completely different, and the toolkits are all incompatible. And then you go into the Mac side, where it simply doesn't work in period at all. So it's not cross-platform. So when someone makes something GTK, they're effectively limiting themselves in how far it can go in terms of cross-platform. Yes, it can technically work on Windows, but it is limited by a lot. And whereas Qt can work on all 3 of the main operating systems, including it can also work on Android. So you can have an automatic built-in responsive app that now has Android. So why do people use GTK instead of Qt? Propaganda. That's what I think.
Well, the fact you can use it on Android, Qt on Android, seems like a really winning strategy there, since a lot of applications are now built for mobile over desktop. And it seems like, Qt's seemingly pretty efficient when it comes to memory usage, because I know they're using it for carputers as well, for the infotainment systems.
Yes.
There's a lot of things, a lot of
So if you're going for the purpose of trying to make a lightweight solution, Qt's easily the choice. Like, you have, like you're saying, there's automotive usage. Basically every Linux-based automotive distro is using Qt, because it just makes the most sense, because it's the most flexible, it's the most reliable, it's consistent. Like, that's a huge factor. It is very consistent. Sure, things will break because it's technology, and even your alarm clock will break for no reason. Like, that's just how tech works, right? But it's the most reliable of any toolkit I've ever been around. And there's not that many necessarily, but it's one of the most reliable. But it's also the main toolkit for basically everything. outside of the Linux desktop, which is so weird. Like, it's the most used in automotive. It's the most used on mobile. Like, while technically Android is not Qt based, a ton of applications in Android are. Every other Linux mobile operating system is powered by Qt, except for Phosh and GNOME's new thing. If they make that, we don't know yet. But everything else is Qt based. So Ubuntu Touch is Qt. Postmarket OS uses Qt. Plasma Mobile is already, like, it's clearly Qt, but it's already making a ton of progress. Like, it's really just people saying that Qt is not trustworthy, and that's why you shouldn't use it, and that creating this avalanche of people believing that it's true, even though there was like 20 years where it wasn't true.
I think Qt was probably heard a little bit about the Qt 4 transition on Linux as well, because it was buggy and did have some problems at the time, and was bloated.
Yeah, they kind of do that every time, really. Yeah,
One thing
I mean, they did that every.
API consistency, like as we have talked, like I think 3 Linux Saloons ago, like I used PyQt for a simple app. So I initially started using PySide 2, which is Qt 5, and I ported my code to PySide 6, which is Qt 6, and I just had to change like one line in the import statement. That's it. Like all the bindings were same. I didn't rewrite my app, nothing. I just changed a line in a Python import statement. That's it. Like most of the bindings are the same for Qt 5 and Qt 6. It's like you don't need to rewrite a whole bunch of your code. Nothing breaks. Extensions don't break because Qt shifted, at least when you write simple apps.
Yep. The Qt 4 to 5 there was some breakage in terms of how everything was built, but it was done on purpose to make sure that 5 and 6 would be compatible. And KDE did the same thing. Like they modified their system to be more modular in order to compensate for future upgrades, because 4 to 5 was not, it was not seamless. But in theory, 5 to 6 will be, which is unheard of in terms of desktop major releases and stuff, right? And what you're saying, Sravan, about the toolkits and the API consistency is a key point. And also, Qt's documentation is pretty freaking good. Like, it is really good. Whereas GTK, I mean, there are times where GTK has issues where they won't even tell you what's wrong, but they'll say, "Oh, this doesn't work." This is not going to be allowed in this insert this group. Like, and you're like, what do you mean? Like, how do I make this work? Well, we don't have time to tell you. What? Like, that's the whole point of documentation. And I know that's a thing that a lot of projects don't want to do, because documentation is not fun, So it's kind of like you were talking about earlier about the bugs and whether they should be working on features versus bugs, or ignoring bugs. And it's interesting because you shouldn't ignore bugs, but at the same time, if a project releases something that all it does is fix bugs, it's not really, hypeable. It's not really something that's worth talking about. Like, for example, I can give you a perfect example that happened this week. There was a distro that released a new version, and everything they did in that version was just bug fixes and security fixes. I didn't talk about it on the show because there wasn't that much to talk about. So they're like, "Hey, there's a new update. They fixed some bugs. All right, see you, next topic." Like, that's all it would be. So I understand why there is some benefits to doing the style of saying, we need to have some features so that we get people talking about it. But at the same time, there are certain types of bugs that are ignored for years, and those are when they're infuriating. Like sometimes there was a bug for, I don't know, there's been bugs for GTK, Qt, KDE, and GNOME that have lasted for years. And then there's this, I heard from some developers that in some projects, because these open source people are not being paid to work on it, they don't want to work on something that's not fun to do. And that leaves the bugs continuing to exist.
Yeah, that
And
makes
that's an
sense.
interesting situation. Yeah. So it's kind of like there's pros and cons to working on bugs, not working on bugs, working on features, not working on features. So like, you know, as a content creator, I kind of want new features so I can talk about it. That's a little selfish, I guess, but
That makes sense. I mean, I use Tumbleweed because I like the new shiny features that come down, and bugs are features, right? When your screen starts flickering weirdness, it's just a new feature.
Mhm.
It's the time to get up and walk away or something app.
Right.
Michael, I know what distro you're talking about.
I believe you. I'm still not going to go into it,
Yes.
but I do believe you. But that
So-
it wasn't to call them out. It was just a point about like it just fit perfectly into the conversation.
Yes.
So to kind of put a bow on this about GNOME 42, the author says GNOME 42 should not have been released to the public in its current state because it's clearly incomplete and, in a nutshell, meaningless. Instead of focusing on dubious changes, they should have fixed most of the critical issues already present in the previous version, which we just discussed why those things sometimes don't get fixed, especially UX limitations and performance. But this will not happen anytime soon. In 6 months, GNOME 43 will be released with a new set of irrelevant changes, including a transparency effect in the header bar and the removal of the current image viewer to give way to a new one with few features and more mobile-friendly approach. It's simply unbelievable. But I think GNOME does have a history of removing features as opposed to adding them.
When they add a feature, it's actually newsworthy to point out that they've added a new thing. Like that's how commonly removing they do. That it's a special day when something is added and not removed.
Right.
But GNOME has a lot of pros. Like the out of the box polish is very good, especially with the latest ones. Like if you go back to 3 point whatever, I would not say that the out of box polish was good. It's actually terrible back then. But the 40 plus has a lot of improvements to the polish, and it is quite nice. I mean, there are some issues, of course, but the main thing I think is that GNOME's biggest hindrance is its performance. Like that part in the article, I'd have to agree with, because GNOME is the heaviest of all DEs by a very wide margin. And a lot of people say that KDE is the heaviest, and they base that on, I don't know. I assume it's based on the amounts of stuff you can do. It just feels like it should be the heaviest, even though it's not at all, and it's more like in the middle ground. But GNOME is clearly the worst in performance, and it took them 10 years to finally fix the single-threaded problem.
Well, at least it's fixed.
So at least they fixed it, though.
Maybe the issue with KDE is you have so many buttons you can push that the windows are too heavy to hold up with the mouse.
That's true. That's true. Sometimes the window just decides to move randomly.
Right. Yeah. Just start sliding
I mean, not
down
actually,
your monitor.
but, sure.
Yeah.
I did have a bug today that was pretty funny. That was a KDE. I don't know if it was a KDE thing. I don't know what happened, but I had a weird bug that my mouse just stopped working for no reason.
Did it get stuck
And
in the
then
center?
It got stuck in a random spot, but it wasn't in the center. But like it wasn't like a mouse. I don't know what it was, because the mouse was not unresponsive, like the cursor itself. It was the actual mouse device had like stopped being detected. And then I did my phone touchpad thing with KDE Connect, and I started moving my mouse around, and then all of a sudden it got stuck in this one little section on my monitor, and I couldn't move it except up and down randomly. I'm like, what is this? I rebooted and everything's fine, but there are some weird things in all technology.
Yeah, I had something similar happen but my mouse got, like, no matter what I do with the mouse, it would move, but then pull itself right back to the center. And there's no touchpad. It's just a mouse on this machine. And they're like, why is it doing this?
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, it's happened a couple of times, but I can't get it to repeat, and I'm not sure how to address it. So
Sneaky sentient mouse.
could be. Actually, I stopped having issues with it when I swapped out with a different mouse and didn't do it anymore. So maybe it was a hardware affecting software somehow, crazy bug. Who knows? But it was not something I could reproduce. Okay, and some
yeah,
other.
those are
What?
Those are fun.
Yeah, those are fun.
Finding bugs you can't actually find again is pretty annoying because they were like, hey, did you report it? Like, no, I have no ability to report it. And then about like a week later, it'll pop up again for no reason. Fantastic.
Right. And when you can't, and having the ability, not having the ability to repeat, like the causation of it is maddening. It's like when you have a weird problem in your car and you take it to the mechanic, like, we can't find the problem. It's not doing it now. Bring it back when it's totally broken.
Exactly. Thanks for the advice.
Yeah. All right. So another, some more exciting news, I think, is CuteFishOS disappears and returns. So there's something that I think brought up here, not only on Twill, but also here. I think it was Colin that did something with CuteFishOS, or was it Cutefish?
The Cutefish. Oh, don't get me visualizing that. Yes, the developer.
Wait, is it cuddle with the T's? Is it cuddle?
It'd be with a K.
Fish. Anyway, continue.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
The developer has come back because somebody said they were going to fork CuteFish, but the developer has returned. They're working on a new website, and apparently it's now, the website's called OpenFish. So that's interesting. And now CuteFish is going to return and start developing again, according to their GitHub page. So Michael might know more about that than what I do, but that's what I've read in a quick summary.
Well, as a reporter who is constantly on the grounds of trying to find this new information about certain things, that's it. It's all, whatever all you said was that's it. That's all we got.
Do you wear a fedora with like a little press tag on the front, Michael?
I should have like a notepad all the time so I can flip it open. Like, so what did you say?
Yeah, I didn't
know. It's Keyfish's.
You should speak in the transatlantic
everything that Colin said is pretty much what it is. Oh yeah, I'll learn how to do that. Yeah.
like old movies, like from the 50s.
Yeah, exactly.
40s.
I'll try. I'll do my best.
I wish people still talk like that.
They do in some cases, because like there are some actors who are in that era who can't not talk like that anymore. So watching the interviews of those is interesting.
It is
what
interesting
Colin
how
said
I
is
think
right about the Keyfish.
I think it's a made up language, but like Michael said, some actors became so ingrained to them that they speak like that still.
Yes.
Not a language, but I mean accent. Sorry about that.
But I've never tried CuteFish. Has anybody here tried it when it was being made?
Yeah.
I tried the desktop environment.
What do you think about it?
I didn't try the OS itself. I tried the desktop environment on Arch. It was pretty okay. There were some things missing. When I tried it back in January, it was still under active development. But I was like, I could get a KDE theme to do most of this stuff. Like, why do I need to use it when there are features lacking? So I removed it, went back to KDE.
I did a video on CuteFish, and it's sort of a very I don't know, it's a nice simple desktop that looks nice. I think it would be good for, like, if it worked on a Google Chrome or Chromebook or a low powered laptop that you're just, searching around the internet, looking at YouTube, doing your email and stuff. I think it would be good for that. I don't know whether it'd be good for much else. Possibly on the desktop, it might sort of work okay as well, but that seems to be, I'm not sure what their main focus is with it really, but it's quite a nice desktop to use and very easy. It was very early development, so it's very hard to say what else they're going to introduce to this desktop, but definitely they just need to get the basics down first. Yeah.
I feel like it looks like elementary OS, but built on Qt.
Yes, absolutely. That's probably a good explanation, to be honest.
Yeah, it's and also interesting thing is I looked at the packages and dependencies or whatnot. It's actually built on KDE frameworks, not only Qt. It's actually using KDE components underneath. And like, you have found a good way to describe it. It's like elementary OS without the polish and without the features.
That's not a great tagline. They should not use that.
I mean, when you put it like that, I'm sold.
Yeah, exactly.
But one thing, what is good is like, because it's based on KDE, like if you're familiar with KDE and you don't want all the knobs, their settings menu and all those things were very minimal. And if you
Yeah.
want it just works, no config for people who are confused with KDE settings menu, I think that was really good when I actually looked at it. But I didn't care. I wanted tinker. I wanted always tinker. So it was not for me, but I think there is a use case, and probably the CuteFish use case is more for more people than for people like me.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I think I feel the same way about, like, I prefer the KDE's approach to being able to have a controller or everything, but I'm a little irrational. What I want is KDE Plasma to have all of the bells and whistles that it currently has, but the out of the box experience to be super polished. Like that would make KDE undeniably the best option. Like right now, we have all the polish being put into GNOME and all the technological value being put into KDE Plasma. And it's like, hey, you know what y'all should do? Remember that April Fool's joke y'all did? How about make it? That's what I want.
That'd be fun. Maybe CuteFish has the potential of being that. Like maybe it's the foundations of something that could be like that.
Well, I
Yeah.
can see. I can really. I'd like to see KDE have like a simple and an advanced settings. So when people first start, they're not overwhelmed with so many things, but you still got the power of doing everything else in an advanced mode, and that way people can just do the simple things that they want to change, and then later on, once they've run the desktop for a little while, they could probably get stuck into the advanced mode and change a lot of things and try out. I don't know if they have a set back to default or anything like that, because that would be a great idea as well. I think a lot of
They
desktops
do
should
have a
have that.
setback to default.
They do. Okay, cool. But
Yeah, KDE
we're talking
Plasma has
KDE, right?
The problem, yeah, they have pretty much everything, right? But the difference between, I think, based on my memory, if memory serves properly, because it's been a while since I've tried to do this, the reset by default only applies to certain sections. So like you can make a change and then reset that back to default, but it won't reset everything back to default. You have to do each individual piece that you've done. So, but I agree, the advanced and the simple would be the ideal.
Yep.
But they are kind of doing that with their, like, when you open the system settings, the front page is kind of like, here's all the super important stuff right now. So they're kind of like trying to figure out a solution to that. But technologically speaking, I think that they'd have to sort of revamp system settings in order to do that, because there's just so much of it, which I think it's worth it. But I think if they couldn't do that part, like, or at least it would make it take, maybe it takes a while to do that part. In the meantime, create an import export feature. And that would be able to, like, for example, people could see like, hey, how did you have your KDE set up the way you do? And I just give them a file that sets their system up that way. Like that would be
I thought they
amazing.
did that. I thought they did that already.
It's individual files for different portions
there's a
of it.
project.
Oh,
So like you can
Right.
save a file of like your
Yes and no.
your tiling rules or like your window rules, like your KWin rules, whatever. That can be saved off as a file. But
no, I saved the
So-
desktop once.
Yes, there are.
I say
certain
I
sections.
changed. Yeah,
You can save every file and import them, but it's difficult to do it. So if you want to, you can take your .config files and you can technically save those and then manually move those back into a new install, and it would essentially work, but it's not really doing it, right? And what Nate's saying, like, you can do it in certain places, there are certain options for it, right? But not the full system.
Right.
And there was a project created called Consave for the idea of the whole system, but that's a third-party thing, not officially a KDE thing.
right.
So, you know,
I've just been
there are
looking at
some
the.
pros and cons to it.
I've just been looking at what Jacques been doing at Markulu Linux, and he's manipulated the GNOME desktop to the point where, you know, he's made it. He's used the extensions to an advantage, whereas you can change the desktop and make it look whichever way you want. And he's got about 8 different desktops, I think, and 16 if you buy the Pro or whatever it is. But he's got the simple thing of just click a button and it's back to what it was. And I think maybe even Ferrin OS may have that. I'm not sure, but I'm a big believer in if people want to use a desktop and they want to get into the nitty gritty. Because I remember, I never forget when I first started Linux, if you did something wrong, how do you get it back to normal so you can start again? I think it's a good feature to have, to be able to reset the desktop back to what it was as a default. So you can.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be really good. There are ways to do that in KDE. Like the not exactly, but the look and feel theme is kind of like changing the interface. So like the way that you're talking about Makula Linux, also the way that Ubuntu Mate has the Mate interface switcher.
Yep.
Those can be done through the look and feel themes, but they're not like a full system switch. They do like certain pieces here and there, but they don't do every piece. Like I tried to build my own look and feel theme, and I kind of stopped because there was one thing I wanted to change that the system didn't allow for that piece to change. So I just didn't make it because it wouldn't have the same effect without that change. I'm of course referring to the Hannah Montana theme, naturally.
Oh, okay.
Naturally.
I have tinkered to no end with KDE and tried to do a desktop. I think I made a Unity desktop within KDE and saved it. But I didn't know where to upload it if somebody else wanted to use it. But I don't generally use KDE, but I like to get in there and just tinker around. But boy, you can get really lost in KDE, to be honest. You can get really lost.
For sure. KDE is what I have to describe as controlled chaos. It is fantastic. There's tons of value to it. It has so many features, so powerful. For anyone who wants to customize their desktop, KDE is by far the best. I know people say that XFCE is the customizable thing. Yes, sure it is. It is very customizable. The KDE still is like 10 times more. Like you can configure anything you want. Well, not anything, but almost anything you want, and it does it pretty well. The problem is that like my sort of pitch and half not pitch about KDE is that the very best thing about it is also the worst thing about it, because all the customizations can be incredibly confusing very quickly. The fact that you have these thing called desktop effects, and there's dozens of them, and each one of those effects can be configured with like dozens of different options, and that's only one section of one component. Like, I understand why people would go like, that's too much. Like, I get it. But then once you have a workflow that you want, KDE can build it. And what's interesting is that I have a combination of GNOME's old workflow combined with Unity workflow inside of my Plasma. So once I found the workflow I wanted, I built it in Plasma, and it works perfectly to how I wanted to do it.
Is there a way?
But if you didn't know what kind of workflow you wanted, who knows?
Is there a way to take your workflow, like your desktop configuration, and export it so that way someone could easily import it as far as like your panel and all of that? That's what KDE needs. Someone make it happen.
Yes, I agree. So that there's an effort in Consave to do that, but there's also the look and feel themes, which can kind of do that. The look and feel themes can change your panels, can change your icons, can change your wallpaper, can change your color scheme, and a bunch of other things. But it can't change everything. So it can't change your keyboard shortcuts, for example. So your workflow will not be fully able to be exported. if you could do the keyboard shortcuts plus all those other things, then you'd have a much closer way of doing a workflow copy. But like,
Yeah.
if someone wanted to do it and someone wanted to have my workflow, one, I'd have to make a video explaining how my workflow even makes any sense. The second thing is I'd have to create multiple files. I'd have to create a look and feel theme, which includes the panels and the wallpapers and the whatever. Wallpapers, who cares? You can just change whatever you want. But the idea of like all those different pieces that are visual, and then you have the other part of doing the, you can export the shortcuts specifically. Like you can go into those and pull those out. But when you export your shortcuts, you're going to be exporting every single shortcut for every single thing. And if you, or you could do individual pieces one at a time per component. And that's just a lot to export and import. And if you wanted to get the entirety of those shortcuts, you're going to be changing a lot, because I changed a lot of how it works by default. So I need to make a video about what I change in the shortcuts. So it's just a lot to do that sort of thing.
You know, it's interesting how many video games are out there where you can just reconfigure everything and then hit one button and it goes back to default. Wouldn't that be nice if we had that, where you could just everything and then there could be a default, and then it would, when you export, it only exports what you've changed? That would be cool.
That would be nice.
We need
Why do you
video.
have to bring up things that we can't do? That hurts my
We need it.
my
That's why.
feelings and my, it's pressing me. You're pressing me. Screenshot.
I suppose from a
But seriously, I agree. I want those.
from a it would be possible to have some sort of a change, like a way you can see what the changes are between default and your changes, because
You can do that actually.
you can do that.
Yeah. So like right now I can't screen share, but if you look at your system settings, when you change something in the later versions of Plasma, so like 524, 525, there is an indicator that shows what you've changed. And you can go into each component and each module and see what you've changed in every single thing. So you can actually take a list and break it down and say, like, here's all the things of every setting that you have changed. But there is no way to do that in a efficient way. You have to do it manually for each piece.
So if there's some kind of a flag within the system where it shows that, shouldn't there be a way to search through the config files for that flag? That sounds
interesting. I have no idea, but that does sound like, in theory, that should be possible. Yeah.
I mean, something's
Never thought of
doing
it.
it.
Yep.
There, I'll leave you with that to chew on.
I appreciate you giving me more work to do. It's fantastic.
I'm feeding the ADD. I'm
But
sorry.
seriously. Yeah, exactly. I will contact some KDE people and see if they know what to search for, because now I'm super curious.
Michael needs to
Although I
add to
assume if
Habitica.
it's in the config file. No, thank you. Then I would be forced to do it. I think that there is still an issue with that, finding all the flags, because the way I remember the KDE configs working is that they're like not YAML files, but they have like value parameter system where if you like, it has everything stored in a single file. Well, not everything in one file, but like every component, every module settings are in these specific files that have the extra stuff you didn't change included in those changes. And if you tried to just import the changes, it would break other things. So in theory, you might be able to find that stuff, but I don't think you'd be able to use it, except for maybe making a list still.
Yeah, I think that one little thing, I guess it's probably not a little thing, but being able to more easily manage your settings on Plasma would be pretty huge.
Yeah.
It would save me a lot of time when I set up a new machine, for sure.
Especially if those custom configs for shortcuts were saved in some hidden dot folder in your home directory. So when you hop to another,
Well, I mean,
that'd be great.
basically everything is. Yeah. All
Everything.
KDE stuff is saved in files in just dot folders, dot files.
Right.
But the thing about the shortcuts you can actually do, I could export all my shortcuts and give them to you if you want. That's not a problem. It's the collective of trying to create all of those, take every piece that makes the workflow and then sharing that all together. So like you can share different bits and pieces, but not everything.
Interesting.
Well, all right. So I just want to say thanks again to Michael from This Week in Linux for mixing up a great flight of topics. I do appreciate it. It makes using all your show prep for my
You're
show
welcome.
prep makes for a lot less work on my end. So thank you very much.
That I believe completely. Yep. Every time he sends me a message, you're like, "Yep, I'm happy to do your show for you."
Yep, exactly. I'm good with that. You know, the problem is it's like I do the no effort November every 4 weeks with the news flight show.
I mean, honestly, I wish I thought of it too and just like ask somebody to give me their notes. That'd be fantastic. So I think your decision is arguably genius.
And I plug This Week in Linux, so it's not like I just say I did the work. I give you all the credit.
It's the spirit of
Well,
open source.
That's fair. That's fair.
Right. I attribute you to the news.
I'll let you do it then.
All right. So on the menu for next week, but not next week, in 2 weeks, is a distro exploration. So in 2 weeks, because there's no show on the August the 20th, we're going to do Clear Linux on August 27th. So you have 2 weeks to play with Clear Linux, and
Sorry.
and we're going to do that because the folks over at Linux User Space, they are doing Clear Linux, so we can kind of compare notes and see how it goes. So it could be a train wreck, or it could be lots of fun. And I'm kind of hoping for the first. Because,
That way
Don't
people
worry,
can't look
there's plenty
away.
of options.
well, it's more exciting then. You know, if you see like a with Jinda, when an application works well, he'll say, "Yeah, it worked well." But if it didn't work, he talks for a long period of time about everything that doesn't work. So it's a lot more fun that way, I think.
A lot more content too.
Right.
Trainwrecks always makes for a better show. For example, Linux Tech Tips, Adventures in Linux.
Mhm.
Those could be described in a single word called Trainwreck. So, but it made for awesome content.
Yeah.
Many people made reaction content, including Michael, on those videos.
Yeah, it's fun that way. We do it in a lighthearted, as positive a way as you can criticize something. So we don't want to poo-poo on anything. But anyway, so Clear Linux, that will be in 2 weeks. So, and for my housekeeping section, no show next week. I will be unavailable to do that. I have it's going to sound really hillbilly, but I'll tell you anyway. Our county fair is happening, and my kids are going to have animals in the fair, and so I can't manage the animals and do the show simultaneously, so there won't be a show next week. So and summer's
And I
almost
wanna
over. What's that?
If you don't mind, let me clarify something too. There's also a project called Clear OS. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Clear Linux.
Okay.
Clear Linux, yeah.
Yeah.
So what's probably going to happen is Eris will do a really nice little wrap-up message to put in the Telegram and everywhere else, and that'll have all those details, and I'll try and put those in the show description as well if I can remember. Eris will remind me because he does that sort of thing. All right, so it's time for a last call. Mark, the Atlanta Linux enthusiasts. It's still a Sunday thing,
Yeah.
right?
That's right. Every Sunday we meet from 3 to 6 U.S. Eastern time, and anyone's our meetings are online, and there's no set agenda. We try to help folks out with anything Linux and open source, and again, people are welcome. You can get more information at ale.org, and yeah, join us if you have an issue.
Do you ever have any issues with people coming with OpenSUSE, or is OpenSUSE just too easy for people to use?
We don't have a lot of SUSE SUSE users show up. A lot of sometimes we'll get students that are interested in Red Hat and such. Most of the people are running Ubuntu or Mint, and just that's just like luck of the draw or whatever.
Gotcha. Well, I think that Ubuntu's tend to be kind of a what most people use. And I think Red Hat's really seeming to be picking up some steam, not to be confused with Valve's Steam, but like Fedora and Red Hat seem to be a lot more in the news.
Maybe SUSE is problem free and people don't need to attend user groups.
That's probably it. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
Sure. So Steve's very own, he has a Coffee Clash Sunday morning at
No, he doesn't.
No, he
I
doesn't.
believe he said he got a Coffee Clutch this week. I seen somewhere.
He posted.
I'm pretty sure he said
Yeah,
there will be no.
it's not on this week. He's working.
I stand corrected, and I am standing because it's a standing desk. So no Coffee Clash tomorrow morning. Maybe the following Sunday. Destination Linux is streaming live tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. So check them out. I got Michael Tennell from This Week in Linux as well. He will be on there, as well as Jill and Brian. Linux User Space, their next episode, they'll be talking about EndeavourOS. They're also going to talk about telling people to stop using RM. I'm interested in that one. And stay tuned with more details on that. And apparently they're going to be featuring some other, like talk about some other Linux podcasts out there that meets on Saturday night. So we'll see how that goes. I'm on a podcast called Linux Out Loud. We talked about CPU architectures, and that comes out on Wednesday. For more things than me, you can go to cubiclenate.com. I do stuff. Linux Saloon is part of the Tux Digital Network, so check out more great shows at tuxdigital.com. I want to thank all of you for being a part of the conversation in both the Zoom meeting and the YouTube stream, as well as everyone for watching the show after the fact. I want to thank everyone involved in making the Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back into personal computers. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yous. 2 weeks.
Good night,
Bye.
everyone. Good night.
Bye.
2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
You know.
Are you okay?
So my
That's,
decision
that-
Well, I mean, maybe I think if I can get out a complete sentence, it does seem like the delineation maybe is not super clear. Then I mean, you said